Hello and welcome to Model Kit Stuff, and today we have a book review for you. So this is a book by Donald Dressel called Planking Techniques for Model Ship Builders. Well, actually, just to clarify, only for wooden model ships. But this is a book that's been out for a little while, originally published around about 1988. And at that point, the gentleman that wrote this book had been building wooden model ships for 20 years or so. So let's just talk about the book. The book itself focuses, as it says, on planking. So that is hull and deck planking. So there's nothing in here about masts. There's nothing on here about decoration or anything else other than what you can see in this picture. Planking, outer planking, deck planking. That's all this deals with. And you can see it's quite a decent book. So you can pick these up second hand for £3 or £4 these days if you look around. Originally they came out around about $15, £12, something like that. So you certainly don't want to be paying more than that for it. I'm not sure if it's in print at the moment or not, but there's plenty of them around, so they're not difficult to pick up. Now, I've had this book for a little while, 4 or 5 years maybe, and I do still refer to it, but not as often as other books I've got. Because the book was written getting on for 30 years ago, the market for model kits has moved on, and so a lot of what it deals with you no longer have to deal with if you're building a wooden model ship from a kit. But it does deal with things like scratch building, which is handy, and it deals with the older style of kits where you've got to cut out the gun ports yourself, and it takes you those techniques. So there's some handy reference material in here for kits that you might buy in the future, which actually were designed back in the 70s and 80s and don't have the modern gun port patterns and prefabricated parts that make building wooden ships a lot easier today. So it deals with things like bending your strips of wood and all that sort of stuff. It's all in here. Let's take a look. So we can see from the contents it deals with materials and tools, the structure of a hull, planking the ship's hull, planking the deck, planking a ship's boat, which is quite handy, and then you have an appendix at the back end. The book is illustrated throughout, but all of the illustrations are black and white. There is no colour in the book whatsoever. There are quite a few drawings which highlight what the author is talking about as he goes through it. So things like shaping the ribs before you put the planks on and that type of thing is all dealt with. So he goes from the very basics. There's no assumptions of any basic knowledge. So if you're building models from scratch and you were reading this, you would understand what the author is talking about. Some of the tools that he shows around clamps and things, they're all relevant to today. All of these sort of clamps you can get, bulldog clips, G clamps and so on. So yeah, there's nothing in here that is no longer relevant. It deals with ways of shaping planks. He doesn't do the steam method that I do, but he does talk about soaking and making planks that conform to the same shape en masse, as you can see. So how to make jigs, so on. He does also go into more complex shipbuilding understanding about shaping hulls and how to read plans that deal with hull shapes in such a way. If you fancy scratch building a ship from wood stock yourself, he'll take you through that process, how to make your false keel, and then how to make your ribs, and how to make your patterns for building your ribs up to cut them out. So it's all in here. Quite a bit of this I think most people wouldn't use unless they'd been building several kits and decided that they wanted to branch out into building their own just from plans. One of the things I like about this book is he does reference actual ships and how they're put together, and shows drawings, so you've got an understanding of what it is you're trying to achieve. And the idea, of course, ultimately is to emulate what was really done. So here, for example, he's talking about whales, and how the whale, which is a thicker material, should jut out from the strakes, and showing typically how those planks would lie. He talks about planking shifts, and he talks about tree nailing if that's what you want to do, and how to scale your tree nails. So he goes into some quite complex construction methods if you're interested. And what he does do, again, which is something I like, is give you an understanding of why ships were constructed in that way, so that you've got something in your mind when you're doing it yourself. So here, for example, he's explaining how the corner planks would be done. Now, on a model ship in the main, you would put one set of planks on top of another set of planks. But here he's showing you how to do it properly with correctly formed planks on the side here of the bulkhead and on the deck. He's also talking about joggling, which is something that a lot of people shy away from or don't understand. But joggling is something that was used, and different countries did it in different ways. There's lots of illustrations, but as they're black and white, they're not as clear as they could be, end up being a little dark, but there's plenty of pictures there to give you an understanding of what's being discussed. Here is showing you how to plank a ship's boat. So there you have it, planking techniques for model shipbuilders. As books go, I think this is quite an in-depth way of looking at planking a ship. Lots of other books will deal with planking as well as the other elements of building a ship. But what happens with this book is you go into more depth and slightly better range of concepts and theories discussed in here, because it's just focused on one area of shipbuilding. I like the book. I think it's easy to read, easy to understand. Even though it's quite an old book now, it doesn't really date because the methods and techniques are largely the same, unchanged. Like I have said, it perhaps doesn't cover some of the more modern style of kits, and possibly an update is perhaps required to the book for dealing with things like gunport patterns, which aren't covered in here at all. There you go, that's my views on that book. It's a great little book. It doesn't cost very much and is handy to have on your shelf for reference. Hope that was useful. Thanks for looking in. Take care, everyone, and I'll see you soon.